HMS Warspite would be in a lot of major theaters of operations for the Royal Navy in the Second World War. From the North Sea to the Indian Ocean, and especially the Mediterranean, she would end up engaging or attempting to engage every major naval Axis power and survive the war, only to be scrapped at the end of it all. Anyway, as I mentioned in the previous video, Warspite would be in the Mediterranean as war broke out in September of 1939, and she would be recalled to the home fleet following the sinking of HMS Royal Oak. After returning to the home fleet, Warspite would be tasked to escort a convoy carrying fuel from Nova Scotia, Canada to the United Kingdom, but she was diverted to go assist in catching the German capital ships Gneisenau and Scharnhorst after they had sunk an armed merchant cruiser, but Warspite failed to make contact with the German ships. In April of 1940, Warspite was going to rejoin the Mediterranean fleet, but the Germans began to invade Norway and Denmark, so Warspite was sent back to the home fleet and diverted to Narvik, Norway. On the 13th, Warspite led a force of 9 destroyers and 3 minesweepers into Ottfjord to destroy 8 German destroyers that were in the port of Narvik. Warspite's Swordfish was sent up to spot targets for Warspite, while in the process, the Swordfish sunk a German U-boat, but also continued its mission to spot and did so with great precision. In the following battles of Narvik, the British forces were victorious and destroyed the German forces in the port. However, Warspite really did get lucky with the amount of torpedo-armed ships and submarines in the area. She would remain in Norwegian waters until the 24th of April, 1940, and then was redeployed to the Mediterranean on the 28th of April. Warspite would arrive in Alexandria, Egypt, just before Italy joined the war on the Axis side on June the 10th, 1940. Admiral Cunningham, who was in command of the Mediterranean fleet, ordered it out on July the 7th to meet with convoys traveling from Malta to Alexandria. He did this because he knew a part of the Italian fleet was escorting its own convoys to their Libyan port of Tripoli. He wanted to draw the Italian fleet into an engagement. This battle became known as the Battle of Calabria. It started off with the British cruisers being forced to withdraw from the more heavily armed Italian cruisers. Cunningham, a man who didn't stray too far away from battle, took Warspite ahead to help assist the ailing cruiser force, in which the Italian cruisers created a smokescreen and turned. As the smoke cleared, 2 Italian battleships appeared, the Julio Cesare and the Conte de Cavour. Warspite engaged them at long range and scored a hit on the Julio Cesare, which caused the Italian battleships to turn and disengage, not knowing how bad the Julio Cesare was damaged, and not wanting to entangle themselves in a battle with overwhelming British forces. Warspite would return to Alexandria on July the 13th. In August, she would bombard the Libyan coast, and in November, she provided cover for the British air attack on the major Italian port of Taranto, in which she also took the time to bombard an Italian supply base in Albania. The next major action would come in the Battle of Cape Matapan. As the Germans began invading the Balkans, the Italians wanted to intercept convoys the Allies had been sending from Egypt to Greece. Through the efforts of Bletchley Park, Cunningham was warned in time of the Italian intentions and planned to intercept the Italian fleet. On March 27, 1941, Warspite and the Mediterranean fleet headed out, and on the 28th the 2 fleets came to blows, in which due to air attacks the Italian battleship Vittorio Veneto was damaged along with the cruiser Pola. The Italians retreated after repeated British air attacks. Vittorio Veneto got away, but Pola was crippled. The British pursued the Italian ships and eventually found 3 Italian cruisers, the Fiume, Zara, and the crippled Pola. Warspite, Valiant, and Barham closed in and utterly destroyed Fiume and Zara at point-blank range, and destroyed Pola after the crew was taken off. Warspite, after establishing the Italian fleet had escaped, returned to Alexandria on the 29th of March. On April 21st, Cunningham took Warspite and other capital ships and escorts, and ineffectually bombed Tripoli due to poor visibility. Later in May, she would participate in the Battle of Crete, and would take major damage due to German air attacks, but was able to make it back to Alexandria under her own power. But it was soon realized that the damage could not be repaired in Alexandria, so she made her way to the United States West Coast to be refit and repaired. Leaving in June and arriving in the U.S. coast on August the 11th, she would have her main armament replaced with new barrels, as well as sticking more anti-aircraft guns on her, and a new surface radar. She would leave the U.S. in early 1942 and arrive in Sydney, Australia on the 20th of February. Warspite joined the Eastern Fleet at Trincomalee in March and became the flagship of James Somerville, forming a group with the aircraft carriers Formidable and Indomitable, along with escorts. Somerville gained intelligence that the Japanese were going to attack the Indian Ocean with the 1st Aircraft Carrier Division, or the Kido Butai, with the intent of attacking Allied shipping and bases in the area. Somerville moved his fleet to the Maldives, and on April the 4th, they set sail to attack. However, the fleets did not meet. Warspite would be later sent to hunt auxiliary cruisers, but could not find them as well. In August, she would participate in attacks on the Andaman Islands, as well as covering for landings elsewhere in the area. After some minor refits in Durban, South Africa, she returned to the United Kingdom in May of 1943. In May of 1943, she underwent a refit that attempted to fix her steering issues, but didn't seem to work quite right still. She also joined Force H and departed for Gibraltar on the 9th of June. She returned to Alexandria on July the 5th in preparation for the Allied invasion of Sicily. On the 9th of July, she rendezvoused in the Gulf of Sirte and covered convoys as they assembled. She was detached from the group on the 12th to go to Malta and refuel. She would assist in the bombardment of Catiana on the 17th of July. She would assist in bombardment work until early September, when the Italians signed an armistice, in which it was insisted that the Italian fleet must sail for Allied ports, which Warspite led a group of Italian capital ships to Malta for internment. After that, she continued her bombardment campaign against the German positions in Italy. However, on September 16th, she was struck by a Fritz X bomb, which was an early guided bomb. With one direct hit and a second near miss, Warspite was crippled. She'd be towed to Malta and then eventually made a slow journey back to Britain and returned by March of 1944, where she would continue her repairs at Rosyth. Warspite would have all her 6-inch guns removed, along with one of her turrets, and a boiler room that could not be repaired. She left with only 6 main battery guns and a lot more anti-aircraft guns, and was just in time for the invasion of Normandy. She assisted in the bombardment until the 12th of June, where she was sent to Portsmouth to rearm, but was ordered to Rosyth because her guns were so worn down. On the 13th of June, however, she hit a mine, and eventually made her way to Rosyth, and while there, they fixed her propeller shaft and replaced the guns, but due to damage, her top speed was limited to 15 knots, in which the Admiralty used her for bombardment missions only. Now, she would assist the Allies in the Low Countries until the 1st of November 1944, where she was returned to the UK and did not fire her guns again. After the war in 1946, Warspite was approved to be scrapped and was sent to Portsmouth to have her guns taken off, and on April 19, 1947, she was sent for scrapping at False End, but due to a storm, she would slip away from the tugboats towing her and ran aground. After many attempts of trying to refloat her, they decided to scrap her on site, and by 1955 it was done, and thus ended the career of the Grand Old Lady. I think it's rather disappointing that she was scrapped, being such a historic ship. Maybe as an American, I'm a little spoiled with the amount of museum ships that we have here, but Warspite, in my opinion, was certainly deserving of such love and attention.